What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live Thursday night from the garage. Happy Friday Eve. Let's go. I see we got Ken in here, Shane, Ethan, Schmidt, Kamar. Good to see everybody. They added this top fans thing. I see Shane is winning. You guys got to beat Shane somehow. I don't even know how this works. I guess however much you comment, you get to be the top fan. And Shane's going to put everybody to shame. Shane. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for joining the live show, man. What up, 780? What are we printing this weekend? We are printing a gauge cluster for the Camaro. Look at it go. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to run out of filament. We're like at 80%. So without getting too far down the rabbit hole, I've got an old AEM CD5 digital dash. And I thought, hey, you know what? It might be fun to tie that in with the core and set up the CAN bus and talk about how to set up the CAN bus and all that stuff. What's up with Sam? Welcome to the live show. Love seeing new faces. Tuning in from Indiana. What's the weather like over there? Tuner Cat VE. Nice. Hey, Brad. Good seeing you, brother. Good seeing you. I love new faces. Listen, for the new people, if you've got a tuning question, just throw it in the chat. Just ask. That's what we're here for. I've got a couple topics that I wanted to kind of talk about to pepper in there. We're waiting on some tuning questions. One of them has been, what is, in your opinion, the best decade for cars? And give me an example of two or three of why that is the best decade. Fighting lean tip in, any ideas would be appreciated. Moto, what are you working on? Because I'm guessing if you're on TunerCat, you're working on an older setup. Look for anything having to do with wall wetting. Yeah, 94 Camaro. Look for something. I can only tell you what it would be on, the P01s and stuff like that. But there is transient stuff in there, which essentially goes back to how much fuel is allowed to gather on the intake runners. And that fuel is there for whenever you hit a transient or a tip-in issue. And it works kind of like a pump shot. 60s, Frank, I need more than just 60s. And I figured 60s was going to be the default answer. What is two or three cars from the 60s that you think embody why the 60s is the best era? What up, Andrew? Schmidt coming in with the 85 Camaro Iraq. Hey, do me a favor, Moto. Send me your bin and your XDFs that you're working on, and let me dig through them. Send them over to Info Garage, and I'll take a look at them and see if there's anything else that can be used. Snow Mongoose, good to see you, man. Good to see you. 84 S10. That is a very strong suggestion, Ethan. 87 Buick Regal T-Type. Good one, Schmidt. Probably the best G-body made. Probably the best. 61 Catalina. You say that, Frank, and I saw one of those today. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it was a 61 because I don't know my... Oh, God, my keyboard's messing up. Of course. There it goes. Pain in the ass. I can't look anything up. 34 two-door sedan. Big fan of the 30s. 85 Chevy Monte Carlo SS. Had one of those. I like the 80s, but I think mine is going to be 90s era. 72, man. So A-Moto, I had a 72 Corvette. And if you're not a Corvette guy, that's the last year for the chrome bumpers front and back. Just a good looking car. These Australians coming in, 80s and 90s, most of the Commodores, yeah. Michael Dye, spit it out. 91 300 ZXTT. So, 300ZX, this is why I like the 90s. 300ZX, 3000 GT, RX-7. So, Japan was kicking it. They were knocking it out of the park in the 90s. Cars were beautiful, still beautiful to this day, in my opinion. I'm not saying that they were fast or reliable by any means, but some of the best looking cars. And even, I like 90s Corvettes. I like 90s Silverados. It's hard when it comes to vets. Like, if I just ask the vet question, it's hard. Because I'm like a 61 through 64 vet. I like the 61, 62 with the C1 front end and the C2 rear end. And then C2 coupes. So, I don't like C2 convertibles. Late 60s, early 70s for mountain hot rodding. Yeah. 2000 to 2014 for the LS Coyote platforms, power potential. Exactly. Yep, you don't have the weird fiber optic light stuff. Why is the VE table for the GTO high numbers? Wendell, that's a great question. No, it's not off topic. Tuning questions are the primary question here. Because the GTOs use the E40, which is a generation adjustment. So the E40 was the building blocks for the E38s that we are used to in 4th gen. So whenever we transitioned from a 3rd gen to a 4th gen, the E40 was the one that was kind of in there, and that's when GMVE started dialing in there. See, I don't like, the only Viper I like is the 5th gen, but I don't miss mine at all. Yes, no. What's going on? Replacing torque converter, 08 TBSS, changing to 3600 stall. What changes to be done in HP tuner? Really, the big stuff on 36, whenever you go up in a higher stall, is to look at the gears where you're actually allowing lockup and make sure that your lockup speed is higher than what the RPM would be for 3600. So if you are locking up too low, it can cause some issues there. But honestly, where you use the stall, first, second gear, if lockup's still on in second, shouldn't be on in any setup on first. But if it's still on in like second or third, turn it off and just have lockup in 4th gear. If you're on a 4-speed, if you're on a 6-speed, maybe 4th, 5th, and 6th, leave the first 3 unlocked, basically. I'd like to own a C5 or C6 vet in a Viper at one point. So I will tell you, and this is all personal opinion. Don't get a Viper. Just don't bother with it. There's absolutely nothing that a Viper can do other than look good that a C6 Corvette can't do at the end of the day, and do better, honestly. I have 5.7 on hard acceleration. My timing goes -3. Could you give me an idea of what can make it do that, or should it be doing it? If your timing goes to -3, you've got it depends on what generation, William, but you got torque management fighting you. So check your torque management settings. they crash into light poles really well. Rapid Wino, nice name. Been watching all of your vids. My HP Tuners is on the way. Welcome to the club. Purchasing, studying up for 2011 2500 with 6 liter. You'll be asleep before long. Keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you, Rabid. Thank you for the super chat. I always appreciate it. C6 ZR1 cam ported E85s on Dreamless. I go back and forth on the C6 ZR1 versus the Z06. Obviously, a C7 ZR1, no reason to want one of those. A, they're 1 year only, so they're stupid money, and B, the Z06 and the C7 was so good. You're just not getting any value for the extra money that you're spending on. But whenever we're talking about the C6s, when we're talking about the LS7 versus the whatever the hell the moniker was, the LS9, I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. That's tough. I every time I go back and I'm like, what if I retired from this? What would I get as the car that I'd want to keep around for the next 15 years? And the C6 Z06 is always like in the top 3 on my list. Got 6-liter gasser, Gen 3 on the build stand. Where are you putting it in, Shane? Well, Andrew, you're right. He said test drive 5. What got the Viper seat on me was Gran Turismo, that red and white one with the PlayStation livery, like in Gran Turismo 1 or 2. I got Gen 4 that has knock around 10 degrees. How bad is that? So, it's probably... Is it real knock, Kevin? That's what you got to look into. So, on the 4th gen, you've got a couple things that you want to look at underneath the Spark tab. Let's see here. It'd just be easier to show. Let's go over. Yeah, honestly. Oh, God, my mouse isn't working. Or my keyboard's not working. Hold on. Give me a second. It'll take me a little longer. That 06, if I still had that, I would be totally in love with it. But, as you know me, I can't stick with one car long. Except for the Smoke Monster, which I actually fired up last weekend. What am I looking for? Let's find a... What are we working on? Gen 4 LS. So let's go... Whatever this was. A Z06. It'll all be the same. There we go. Okay. Fiero GT. Listen, I'm a big Fiero fan. Okay, you're getting me off topic. The only car that should ever have been mid-engine from GM. Underneath Spark and your retard tab for timing here, you've got a couple things that you want to look at. One of them is just going to be static. Versus cylinder. If you have numbers in here, which some do, trucks I believe may be the ones that do, zero this table out. Static, retard versus cylinder. And then the other one you want to look at burst retard, base versus cylinder, and zero this out. Because this is probably the table that you're seeing. And this is a transient knock filter that shows up as knock in the scanner. And this is just anticipation of knock whenever you are tipping in or adding a bunch of load. This, the columns are cylinder air delta. So the larger the cylinder air delta from one to the next step, whatever the scan period is, the more timing it automatically pulls out. And this is where I see. Now, if those are zeroed out, then you're looking at false knock, and you're going to have to dial back the knock sensors, or you're looking at real knock. But if you're getting 10 degrees and you're not boosted, it's probably not real. Okay, what I miss? If I became a lotto winner, I'd get an 05064 GT. Send it to Hennessy to make a copy of the Texas Mild. I like those cars. For a Ford, that's probably the one that I would jump on. How so you reset the VCM scanner? I can't get to load the map sensor over to monitor and record. Okay, Kim, let me see if I can get the scanner, and I don't know if I'll really be able to show you since I don't have an ECM to plug into. I've got 3 ECMs sitting within range. I just need to bring one of my bench forces in here and hook it up so we can kind of do it. But the big thing that you want to do, if you can't get to read in, delete it out of the list. And let me get... Come on. There we go. Let's get this. Pop, 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 pop. Delete it out of the list. And say we're looking. We'll get rid of. Oh, yeah, my keyboard's not working. So, remove channel. Go on, come in. And repoll for supported parameters. And then add it back into the list. So, after you connect up, it's deleted out of the list. Then you can come in. And if my keyboard wasn't doing this, this is exactly what my keyboard's doing. Yeah. So, that's not going to work. But add it back to the list, if that makes sense. Okay? Give that a shot. Should sort you out. Okay. What else? Did I miss anything? As I said, putting that Gen 3.6 in a truck. Ooh, William. I don't have any experience with the Turbolamic to the Holley Terminator. There is a guy that has done multiple of them. He goes by Dr. EFI. Look for him. And the thing about it is, if you find him on YouTube or Instagram or something like that, you'll know it's him because he will have a lot of posts about it, and reach out to him. That guy has done multiple Turbolamics with Holleys. I don't know if he's done it with the Terminator. I think on that one, you may have to run the analog. Do you have the CAN version of the Turbolamic? Because you may need to repin the harness to bring in all of your signals analog, because I don't think that the Holley Terminator CAN messaging works. Whoo! Talk to him. 900 for a street tune. For just the transmission or the entire thing? The entire thing, it may not be a bad idea. He seems to have a lot of luck with them. But, you know, I'm going to be diving in the next month or so specifically on the settings for the Turbolamic outside of the CAN bus. The CAN bus stuff I'm not going to touch on because it's so different for everything. I'll talk a little bit about it with the core integration. But as I've said, thanks, Amoto. We are working on direct integration with the HP Tuners core and Turbolamic. So the HP Tuners engineers are on board. Turbolamic, those guys are on board. And in fact, I'm going to have one of the engineers come out in a couple weeks, and we're going to sit down and shoot some videos specifically about the Turbolamic with the core. But after that, I will get into a specific tuning guide for the Turbolamic and talk more about that. Excuse me, I'm a little burpy. Got Gen 3 P01 running LQ9 with truck Norse. Getting a surge at light throttle between 1,000 and 1,400. So it's like, look, the big thing about it is anytime that you're getting any kind of surge like that, look and see what your timing's doing, because you're probably having something funky going on with timing spikes. Especially on that, because with the P01, you're going to be, I'm taking it drive by cable, so it's not going to be a throttle issue. Though you might be getting close enough that the IAC's you're like getting on and off the throttle cracker. So check your IAC counts and make sure it's locked, because once you get out of the idle range, the IAC should stop moving and go to a park position for returning to idle. Make sure you're not on that cusp, but as I said, look at your timing first, and then if it does look like timing, add any timing parameter you can and see if one is jacking with your timing causing that. And look at your timing table. Make sure that you don't have a step in there. Make sure you don't have like a 20 to 30, like a 10 degrees jump on that RPM somewhere, and it's just crossing over. Michael Dye, can you look at a tune for me and help me out? Check out our Patreon. There will be a link down in the description that's specifically for what that is. There's a tier in there where you can send in tunes, logs, stuff like that. I'll look them over, help you out, help you sort out problems, and get you on the road. Kevin says, how much HB could the L92 6.2 hold boost-wise playing on Pro charging it? It's really going to depend on if you're talking stock bottom end, if you're doing any kind of mods, if you're, not even gap in the rings. So without gap in the rings, you can get probably, I'd say, 8 to 10 PSI. You throw some methanol injection on there, you can probably get up to 14 PSI. If you got a built bottom end, the sky's the limit. Sounds good, William. Frank, a Z01 is one car that I've never had and always kind of been interested. John says, got a Gen 453 with a BTR Red Hot. It's dialed in, cruising and idle, but when I'm coast down, timing drops to a stay 10 to 13, even though I have coast down spark set to idle. What would cause this? Whenever it does that and it coasts down, does your RPMs, does it do it whenever your RPMs get back to target idle area? Because you're probably just reverting back to the idle base table at that point in time. Anything about the 2425 ECM unlock? Which platform? And I'll be honest with you, Frank, I can't, even if I know about it, I can't talk about that stuff. I'm under NDA with HP Tuners because they do share me. Hey, ICT car guy, I see what you're doing there. They do share, information with me that I can't share, and a lot of times it's going to be release schedules like that. So, but I will say, if you're talking about anything, 24, 25, Ford, GM, something like that, Ford, GM, or Dodge, it is being worked on. I know that for a fact. I can say that without having to tell you. And what the process is they will figure out how to unlock it. So here's the big thing. They figure out how to unlock it. Sometimes it requires us to send in ECU. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes initially it does. Then as they continue development on, they figure out a way to do unlocks without having to send it in. So soon as they can unlock something, even if they have to have you send it in and do a service unlock where they have to do a bench unlock where they open it up and reprogram an EEPROM manually or something like that, they'll push it out as long as they have the tables defined and all that stuff. They keep on working on it. And that's the big thing. Like, as I said, if you're working on 2021 right now, make sure you're on the latest beta because they are adding tables constantly. I opened up a tune file the other day that was a stock tune that was pulled from like a 22, and it was missing about 40 tables versus a newer tune that I had for the same vehicle. I don't know, man. ICT car guy, the Pirates are trying to get back in the game. They've had a pretty hot July, which is crazy. Ooh, Ethan, should I replace my 572 and my 84 S10 with an LS? Probably not. What are you trying to do? Hey, Levi. Having an issue on 02 Silverado that I've done an LS3 with an LSA blur swap in. I'm fighting an issue where it goes about 15 to 20% rich in park neutral and then goes about 5 to 10% lean in gear. That's interesting. So, first off, it sounds load dependent because whenever you're putting it in gear, the load shoots up because the transmission is engaged at that point in time. And if it's load dependent, it's VE table. So, I mean, here's the thing. I'm a big block guy. I love big blocks. And anything the LS does, the big block can do better, but it's going to be more expensive to do it. So, Kamar. Okay. So, yes. And you can thank me for that. So, I managed to find a funky bug that's in the back end of the software that was causing those issues. And they've got that sorted out. And they had to send me one too because mine, as I said, killed my drive-by-wire, the ECU physically was all right. It was a software issue. We worked through some troubleshooting steps, figured out what it was, and as I said, they should have a new version coming out. My guess is in the next week or so. What did soul? So I think I'm gonna fire mine this weekend, Kamar. I would say big blocks are heavy and expensive. They're expensive. They're not, people always say, oh, they're so heavy. You're talking about 200 pounds. So, well, and that's the thing, like situations like that, just, sometimes you got to work those bugs out. Yeah, exactly. Boosts are cheap on LS, expensive on big block. I don't know. My big block doesn't leak. I mean, it does if the vacuum pump's off. But as long as I've got vacuum on it doesn't leak. Hey, Wayne. Good to see you, man. We got a great crowd in here tonight. Got some old school in here. We got some new faces. And then we've got our regular crowd. Just put a new motor in my kid's Mustang. Did you put a new, put a 4.6 in it, or did you do it right? What vacuum pump do I run? I've got the Moroso pump, but I had to, because I'm serpentine, I wasn't able to run a mandrel and run it off a V-belt. So I got there's some company that makes a serpentine pulley for it. And surprisingly, it wasn't that hard to align. I need to finish up, basically the burn down tank for it. Right now I've just got going into a small Moroso catch can filter top, but I actually need to run it through something that's got, some baffling in it and stuff like that. But essentially with the new heads, intake, and cam, that thing had absolutely no vacuum. Just no vacuum. And it has enough piston blow by that it was an issue. It was pushing oil out of the rear main. No, you shouldn't be seeing a 15 to 20% difference between two cells, Levi. But look at it. Look at your VE table and see where the shift is whenever you're going from park into drive. Still tuned VE. When I crack throttle, normally get bucking. You've got more VE to do, Kenneth. If it's that way when you're tuning the map, that's because it's on the VE. Remember, whenever we go into... Wait a second. Whenever we go into any kind of transient mode, it backs off the map and kicks over to the VE table. So just keep working on that VE table. Chocolate covered payday is King Daddy. ICT Car Guy, did you ever read The Stand by Stephen King? He doesn't want an LS. He's a Ford purist. God, you gotta raise those kids up right, man. Thought I had a rear main link. Turns out it was the oil sending unit at the rear of the block. Keep looking upwards. No, I know for a fact mine was the main seal. As soon as I put a vacuum on it stopped. I don't think I'm pulling oil pressure from the back of the block anyways. I think I'm pulling it from a sandwich adapter. Chocolate salty nuts. Yeah, Ken, let's look at it. Because there might be some other things that we can look at. Might have some transient stuff. Might need to go in and bump up the gain on the transient wall wetting stuff. Try that out. Oh, newer LS blocks. Oh, yeah. Well, let's be honest. That rear cover that the LS has is just a terrible design. So, ICT car guy, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a character in The Stand, and listen, it's a super long book. It's can be hard to get through. That is, chocolate paydays are his main thing. Shane, what up? Thanks for all the cool videos. Thank you for watching, obviously, and thank you for showing up for the live show. I've learned a lot from you successfully tuned my vehicles. That's what I love to hear. Yeah. Just, slap RTV on everything. I'm kidding. Mike, they did a mini-series a couple years ago, redid the mini-series. It was pretty good. And it followed the book fairly well. But funny enough, it was a very long mini-series. It's like 8 hour-and-a-half episodes. And the book is still quite a bit longer. The Stand is a very, very daunting book. So if you're not a heavy reader, you probably, I would say, maybe stay away from it. I don't read anymore, but I do a lot of audiobooks. In fact, I downloaded my 400th audiobook today. So I digest audiobooks. I've got almost an hour-long commute one way. And so instead of listening to radio, I listen to books to and from work. Okay, last one, the VE with stage 3 cam. I'm idling in the 75 to 85 kPa range and 85 to 90. Seems too high. Smoke tested for vax leaks and nothing. Play with your timing in the idle area. Bump it up and down. See if you add a little more timing to it, if it'll pull it down. So think of it like, Levi, look up a video about setting timing with vacuum, the way that they used to do it with carburetors and distributors, and that'll give you an idea of what to do on a modern car. We can control the timing directly, which will change the vacuum, if that makes sense. It's a good way to go. Old knowledge works really good, specifically on that, to maximize vacuum. But stage 3 cam, you're going to be pretty high, but it sounds like you're about 10 higher than I thought I was doing. David, glad to hear it. RTV should be used sparingly. Listen, RTV, you saying that means that you have never RTV'd something that's hard to get to, put together, and still had it leaked. Ethan, should I go supercharged turbo? Just depends on what you're looking for. I'm not really a turbo guy. I'm a supercharger guy. But oddly enough, I'm a centrifugal supercharger guy, which acts more like a turbo. But yeah, like Snow says, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want? What are you looking for out of it? Log into all the spark adders. Nothing shows as pulling spark. That's interesting. Something, unless your base table just has that low spark, John, something has to be pulling that spark. There has to be something telling it. And the thing about it is, you got to remember that some of them will show up as positive timing, but they're actually pulling timing. I want to try turbo one day, still enjoying my P1 for now. P1's a gray head unit. And it's a head unit that will work on basically anything. Dominating the plebes. No, I'm a cubic inch guy. I like big motors. I like naturally aspirated. It's awesome what you can do with boost, but making big power with naturally aspirated setups, I think, is a lot more fun. And that could be true also, John. If you have too much airflow, the correction, and you might be, let me think about that, because in idle, the idle control circuit may not show spark correction. So you probably have about a 15-degree target for idle spark, and then You can go into your idle sparks and zero them out and see if it stops. Your idle spark correction. It won't idle worth a damn. You need a few degrees, but you probably don't need as much as pulling. Wayne, what's going on? Hope you're doing good. Doing good. Feeling good. Feeling good. I hope you're doing good and feeling good. Most people have no clue how helpful you and your videos are. You do. That's what matters. Literally learned how to tune a headcam intake Gen 2 LT2 to an LS1 PCM from stock tune. Awesome, bro. Thanks for reporting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining the live. I told the guy literally today, said, oh man, how do you not have, 500,000 subscribers, stuff like that? And I said, listen, when I make a video, if it helps one person out, that video is a success, and I don't care if a second person watches it. I hope one watches it, right? But just do things that I find are informational for me that could be informational for you guys. And so it's never been about views, never been about subscribers. Let's see here. Could be the throttle follower. Now, unless throttle follower is causing your airflow to be too high, but honestly, the throttle follower should not be affecting idle. Once you're in idle, the follower should be out of it. So you look at your base idle airflow, make sure that it's not set too high. So that base idle airflow table that you always hear me talk about is kind of like the minimum airflow. You don't want that to be as high as what you're actually flowing. You want it to be a little bit below that as a target whenever you're coming down to idle. So if you're idling at 110 pounds per hour, don't put base idle at 110. Try it at 100. Make sure it comes down to the idle set point right with good timing. Bernard, you're too sweet. De La Soul, are you baiting me? Or are you serious? Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it, brother. Shane Graves, what do you do with the injectors that don't provide data? Where did the injectors come from? Can you work them back? Like, did they come from something that you can extrapolate the data out of? Did you try ChatGPT? Honestly, that is... So injector data is critical. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be close. But it is critical. Because you think of those as a constant in the math. A giant math formula. That's a constant. And if that is off, the math continues to get worse and worse and worse and worse. All GM injector data that was should be available somewhere. Ford data, most of those should be available. 25 to 60 pounds. What needs to be changed? Depending on the platform, your main ones are going to be flow versus pressure, injector off time, pulse width versus voltage, minimum pulse. Just threw my Chinese injectors out for injector clamp injectors. And I'll be honest with you, when it comes to buying injectors, I buy injectors because of the data, and I will spend a little bit more money for data. Haltech Rebel S, trying to trigger my electric fans with a generic DPO. Fans run when commanded, but they pulse off and on every couple seconds. Could I have the frequency out incorrect? You shouldn't be, what's a generic DPO? Digital pulse out? You're going to want the, okay, come on. Do you not have like a low side digital out that you can use instead of a digital pulse out? Because digital pulse out, I'm taking it you're pulsing the ground. Are you trying to change? If you can use, okay, this is a deep subject. You can use a digital pulse out to actually change the speed of the fans if you want to run them at half rate. But if it is kicking on and off every couple seconds, your frequency is way too low. So think of it as a frequency of 0 should always be on. Frequency of 1 is 1,000th of a millisecond or so. And so if, look up a frequency to time conversion because it's a little bit funky how that works, and you can kind of figure that out. But I would just move them to a low side out and, run power to them and just trigger the relay, the low side of the relay, run them at full bore, or using aftermarket fan controller. Because honestly, something like a fan, because there's a decent amount of mass on there, pulsing it is going to probably cause issues with the motors over time. Yeah, exactly. Frequency to time conversion. I can't ever get it straight, Mark. It just, like every time I think I've got it figured out. Snake eaters are affordable and good. They've got good data. They're affordable. I know some people have had some issues. The big thing about it is a lot of the issues that I see people that have on those is more issues of not like cleaning out lines and stuff. Yeah, John, check back and let me know. Yeah, you put it on physical switch and send it, but it's nice being able to not have to worry about it. If you've got the available DOs, use them. Oh, it used to be Harry Johnson. Got you. Okay, Wayne. That makes a lot more sense. Well, that's a great thing. So if you think of monitor refresh rate, if you're 240 hertz, you're talking about 240 frames per second. 120 hertz, 120 frames per second. So you can think of it that way. What are you talking about, Shane? New injectors require ECM check on injectors data. Make sure it's updated if needed. Yeah, exactly. So 60 frames per second being 16.66 milliseconds. So you could take 1 divided by 60. 60. How would that work? 1 divided by 60, right? We did update injector data. The only issue was they didn't cover my old ass CCM, but we did math to set up. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you have math, and it also depends on what kind of setup. If you're doing this on something that you've built out, my suggestion is just do a return setup and a manifold referenced regulator, and then it doesn't matter. You just flatline your flow rate for whatever the injector is. So if you have 58-pound injectors, the whole flow rate table is 58 pounds because the delta across the injector is always the same, the delta pressure. So that is one thing. Even if you are not running boosted, I like to run a referenced regulator. And that way, whenever the vacuum's low in the manifold, it'll lower the injector pressure down, your fuel pressure. There's no reason to run 58 all the time. So they make a reference regulator, any reference regulator. That's what I'm saying. Convert it to return. Get away from returnless and the internal regulator and run like an Aeromotive or a Snow Performance regulator. It's like $150. It's worth doing it because it makes that constant in that math parameter still moves based off of pressure, so it's still being skewed. It's not a constant, it's a variable that's set. It turns it into a true constant that way, and so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, factory rails, you can retrofit the factory rails, run into the regulator, out of the regulator, into the factory rails without a return line on the rails, and just have the return line come out of the regulator. Works like a champion. Well, you've got to have some kind of pressure control somewhere. So, you know, and whether it's back on the pumps, like, you know, that's the big thing about running the Corvette style. It was back on the pumps or on the fuel hat, stuff like that. There's something controlling, or in later models like Gen 5 stuff, they use PWM controlled pumps to actually adjust the fuel pressure. They change the pump output rate on the fly. There's something trying to maintain fuel pressure. Wouldn't be the ECM. If you've got one that uses pump pressure, you'll have a fuel pressure control module. So you'll have an FPCM. If you don't have an FPCM, if you're on a Gen 4, stuff like that, it'll have a built-in regulator somewhere. Oh, I haven't even looked at the lights. What are you slackers doing? Oh, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Let's look at our top fans. Who's winning? Who's winning? We got Shane in first. Who is... Oh, VH45DE240SX. That's Kamar. Then Caradon 1969. Who's Caradon? Like, the names that show up on here are completely different. Oh, Commander Shepard. Okay. That's weird that it shows me different names for who's winning. Okay. We're going to start wrapping up. I'm going to do a poll. I want to do a poll. I've been thinking about this for a while. Oh, wait. My keyboard doesn't work. Hold on. Just going to unplug this thing and plug it back in. I thought I fixed this already. I thought this was an old school issue we used to deal with. But I will say my software, there we go. My software did update today. So let's see if this works. Okay, so let me add some options. Okay. Somebody might get triggered. I want to see what everybody's... There we go. Oh! Oh! Wayne, the Super Auto was sold. Okay, so after the Super Auto caught fire... Yeah, gaming clicks, exactly. Gaming keyboard. After Super Auto caught fire, I sold it. Put new harness in it, sold it. Well, Kamar, that's a great question. Bosch 49 or NTK, are you going to be running ethanol? Honestly, I'd stick with the 49 just because they're cheaper. NTK sensors are way too expensive. And honestly, unless you're running... Yeah, if you're not running ethanol or diesel, I wouldn't even bother with an NTK. 49 is a great sensor. Stick with that. And buy the $30 Amazon special. Let's see what the results are. Okay. So Mustang did make up 60%. It was funny because... I asked my buddy at lunch today, I was like, hey, bro, when I say shitbox, what's the first car that comes to mind? And it was Fox Body. Sheik, what causes wrist conditions when punching the throttle? Good. So, you got to start, whenever you punch the throttle, your transient's going to be VE. And if it's not VE, if you got that table dialed in, great. It could be one of your transient settings, which honestly, whenever it comes to transient settings, usually they cause lean issues. Yeah, 4.9's worked fine on E85, and as said, the hype behind the NTKs and the extra price just doesn't exist. Now, back in the day when the NTK came out and the 4.2s were still everywhere, I feel like the NTKs were quite a step up, but the 4.9 really closed the gap. Well, you're talking about your VE as a load-based map. And so that's why, if that thing's not dialed in, and it also depends on what car you're working on. I mean, you could be on a Mustang, as I'm in here throwing shade at Mustang. Hey, you didn't put that in a C10, did you, Kamar? Because I just created a pretty sweet C10 mount. I'll see if I can hold it up to the... Where is it? Where's my picture? So, let's turn sideways. Oh, it's trying to key out. That's funny. I made that for a buddy back in Oklahoma that's putting a Rebel OLS into a C10. Well, that's 100% true, John. That is 100% true. Being from Oklahoma, I can attest to that. Silverados and F-150s are. Kia is. The funny thing about it is God, Wayne, you remember back in the late 90s and stuff, Kias were disposable. You bought a Kia for like $4,000 and you drove it for 3 years and then went to the scrapyard. It would not live beyond that. So, and then suddenly, like Hyundai was the same way, and then now they're making like good cars, which is crazy. No, you're full of it, Bernard. America does not have cooler cars than Australia. Australia has the coolest cars ever. You've got Utes. We haven't had a proper Ute since they got rid of the El Camino. Like, not only do you have Utes, you have Utes that are performance-based Utes. So, I'd listen. I'll stop talking trash on for. I've got a Mustang shirt on, for God's sakes. Holden Maloo, man, that's what I'm talking about. There you go. Holden Maloo, dream car for me. With one of the long weird number and letters attached to the end of it, FSV whatever. Help me out, Bernard. Help me out. What's suspect is I've got one of these with a Shelby on it and one of these with the Demon on it. They don't make one of these with a Corvette on it. Okay, I gotta roll. HSV, yeah. Let's go. I want HSV Ute. You guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. Thanks for all the new faces and old faces coming back. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you next Thursday. Keep your eyes peeled. Maybe there'll be a fresh start video. And remember, ABT, always be tuning.